Are you an employer with staff working in California? Are you aware of the requirement to have a written violence prevention plan in place prior to July 1st, 2024? If not, tune in to today's episode to learn the requirements so you can comply and avoid potential financial penalties.
Welcome to Biz Help for You, the show that saves you the expensive learning curve by providing advice from industry experts in every facet of the entrepreneurial journey. Too many small businesses collapse. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 20% fail within their first year, and less than 35% make it to their 10th anniversary. The goal of this podcast is to change that statistic. So if you're interested in learning more to be a successful entrepreneur, tune in today.
Last year, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed Senate Bill 553, which establishes the California Division of Occupational Safety and Health, OSHA, as the agency set up to enforce the new requirement to have a comprehensive workplace violence prevention plan. Under this plan, employers are also required to conduct training and create violence incidents logs. According to OSHA, workplace violence is the second leading cause of fatal occupational injuries in the United States, affecting nearly 2 million American workers annually. Cal OSHA recently published a model workplace violence prevention plan along with fact sheets. This plan contains an overview of the law, directions for drafting the plan, key legal definitions, and a framework of all required plan components with areas for employers to customize the plan based on their particular work site. A link to this plan is available in our podcast resources page. By July 1st, you must establish a workplace violence prevention plan, WVPP, that includes prohibiting employee retaliation, accepting and responding to reports of workplace violence, employee workplace violence training and communication, emergency response, workplace violence hazard assessments, and other requirements such as maintaining a violent incident log. Let's first review the definition of workplace violence. Per Labor Code Section 6401.9, workplace violence is defined as any act of violence or threat of violence that occurs in a place of employment. This includes, but is not limited to, the following: the threat or use of physical force against an employee that results in, or has a high likelihood of resulting in, injury, psychological trauma, or stress, regardless of whether the employee sustains an injury. An incident involving a threat or use of a firearm or other dangerous weapon, including the use of common objects as weapons, regardless of whether the employee sustains an injury. The four types of workplace violence defined in Labor Code Section 6401.9. Note that workplace violence does not include lawful acts of self-defense or defense of others. Next, let's look at the definitions of the levels of violence. When examining the circumstances associated with workplace assaults, acts of workplace violence include four major types. Type 1 violence means workplace violence committed by a person who has no legitimate business at the work site and includes violent acts by anyone who enters the workplace or approaches workers with the intent to commit a crime. Examples include retail robberies, workplaces where employees or proprietors have face-to-face contact and exchange money with the public, robberies of delivery, taxi cab, and ride-hailing drivers, janitors and maintenance workers, and threats and acts of violence directed at security guards. Type 2 violence. This means workplace violence directed at employees by customers, clients, patients, students, inmates, or visitors. Examples include social welfare service providers in unemployment offices, welfare eligibility offices, homeless shelters, probation offices, and child welfare agencies. social welfare service providers while on site and during visits at residences, teaching, administrative, and support staff in schools where students have a history of violent behavior, and other types of service providers, such as justice system personnel, customer service representatives, and delivery personnel. A Type 3 violence means workplace violence against an employee by a present or former employee, supervisor, or manager. The primary target of a Type 3 event can be a co-employee, a supervisor, domestic partner, or manager of an individual who may be seeking revenge for what they perceive as unfair treatment at the workplace. Type 4 violence means workplace violence committed in the workplace by a person who does not work there, but has or is known to have had a personal relationship with an employee. So, what can be done to reduce workplace violence? First, perform an initial assessment and evaluation of risk factors. You must conduct an initial assessment to identify and evaluate workplace violence hazards which have been shown to or that may contribute to the risk of violence in the workplace. Potential factors that could exist that may increase the risk of workplace violence include, but are not limited to, exchange of money, working alone, working at night and during early morning hours, availability of valued items such as money and jewelry, guarding money or valuable property or possessions, performing public safety or social welfare functions in the community, working with clients, passengers, customers, or students known or suspected to have a history of violence, or employees with a history of assaults who have exhibited belligerent, intimidating, or threatening behavior to others. Secondly, you must create a Workplace Violence Prevention Plan, WVPP. You are required to address workplace violence hazards to protect employees and comply with the regulatory requirement of establishing, implementing, and maintaining an effective written workplace violence prevention plan. Cal OSHA has created a guide to assist you with creating your plan. You can find this on our resources page, which can be accessed through the show notes. Per the regulations, you are required to include the following elements and effective procedures in your written workplace violence prevention plan, or include them as a separate section in the IIPP for workplace violence prevention. Names and titles of persons responsible for implementing the written plan, procedures to obtain the active involvement of employees and authorized employee representatives in developing and implementing the WVPP, methods you will use to coordinate implementation of the plan with other employers, procedures to ensure that all employees, supervisory and non-supervisory, comply, procedures to communicate and provide training to employees on workplace violence, procedures to identify, evaluate, and correct workplace violence hazards. You must review your plan as follows: when the plan is first set up, periodically scheduled, after violent incidents, and whenever a new hazard becomes known. Procedures on how to respond to actual or potential workplace violence and how to accept and respond to reports of workplace violence, including procedures to prohibit retaliation against employees for reporting workplace violence. Procedures for post-incident response and investigation, and procedures or other information required by the Division and Standards Board as being necessary and appropriate to protect the health and safety of employees. Now, let me review the violent incident log requirements. You must maintain a log of all incidents, even if it did not result in an injury. It must include information from employee and witness statements and investigation findings. Be sure to include the following in the log: incident, date, time, and location. Workplace violence type. Remember the 1, 2, 3, or 4. Detailed description of the incident. classification of who committed the violence, the circumstances at the time of the incident, where the incident occurred, specific incident characteristics such as physical attacks, weapon involvement, threats, sexual assault, animal incidents, or other events. What the consequences of the incident were, including any involvement with law enforcement. What steps were taken to protect employees from further threat or hazards? And who completed the log, including their name, job title, and the date completed. But note that you must exclude personal information that would identify any person involved in a violent incident. Cal OSHA has a document on record-keeping requirements, and this document is also available in our resources, which can be accessed with the link in the show notes. So let me review what the training requirements are. You must provide effective training and ensure that training materials are easy to understand and match the worker's education, reading skills, and language. You must provide employees with an initial training and annually thereafter. The training is required to cover various aspects, including the following: familiarizing employees with the plan, how to obtain a copy, and how to participate in the development and implementation of the employer's plan. Definitions and requirements of Labor Code Section 6401.9, how to report workplace violence incidents without fear of retaliation, understanding of job-specific violence hazards and preventative measures, the purpose of the violent incident log and how to obtain related records, and opportunities for interactive discussions with someone knowledgeable about the employer's plan. When new or previously unidentified workplace violence hazards are discovered or changes are made to the plan, you must provide additional training that focuses on the specific hazard or plan modifications. You can prevent and reduce the risk of workplace violence with an established, effectively implemented, and maintained WVPP, along with strong management commitment and the day-to-day involvement of all employees and their authorized representatives. Thank you for tuning in today. Would you please share this episode with those you know and leave a review on your favorite platform? And if you find our show informative, would you consider being a financial sponsor to help me continue my mission to educate business owners? A link is located in the episode description, and no amount is too small. I'd really appreciate your support. If you are interested in connecting with our guest and receiving the offer they had to share, a link to our resource page is in the show notes. Finally, if you have any bookkeeping or payroll needs, reach out to us at 310-534-5577 or contact@abandp.com. My team and I are eager to assist you. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.